If you've been scrolling through endless drone listings, watching video after video of people comparing specs, and still feel stuck wondering which little flying camera actually makes sense for you, this review is here to clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks actually taking the DJI Mini 4 Pro Fly More combo out for a weekend trip, a city shoot, and a quiet backyard test, and I'm going to walk through what I saw, where it shines, and where it might leave you wishing for something else. First off, the biggest hesitation most buyers have with a sub-250-gram drone is the fear of it being too fragile or too limited for serious work. On the other side, beginners worry that a pro name means a steep learning curve they can't afford. The Mini 4 Pro sits right in the middle of that tension. It's light enough that you can just toss it in a pocket and you won't have to register it in most countries, which instantly cuts down on paperwork and cost. At 0.549 pounds, 249 g, it feels more like a high-tech toy than a piece of expensive equipment. Yet the camera is a full-frame 4K sensor that actually records crisp, color-accurate footage. The Fly More combo gives you 3 batteries, which translates to roughly 102 minutes of total flight time when you swap them out enough to keep a full day of shooting without hunting for a charger every half hour. Let's talk about ease of use. The DJI RC2 controller that comes in the combo is a game-changer for people who don't want to pull out a phone every time they launch. The screen is bright enough to see in direct sunlight, and the layout is intuitive. A single joystick for flight, a second for camera tilt, and a handful of buttons that map directly to the most common functions: takeoff, land, and the new smart return to home. That return feature uses precise detection to sense obstacles and bring the drone back, even if you lose visual contact. In practice, I tested it on a windy beach morning. The drone veered off course for a moment. The obstacle sensors kicked in, and it guided itself back to the launch point without me having to intervene. That kind of safety net is a massive confidence boost for beginners who are still learning to keep the aircraft in sight. Autofocus on the Mini 4 Pro feels snappy enough that you can point the drone at a moving subject, a jogger, a dog, or a cyclist, and the camera locks focus in a second or two. I tried it while filming a sunrise over the mountains. The light was low, the colors were shifting, yet the focus stayed locked on the horizon as the sun rose, delivering a smooth, well-exposed clip. Low-light performance is decent for a 1-inch sensor at this size. The footage isn't as clean as a larger sensor cinema drone, but you get usable detail without having to crank the ISO into the noise-loving zone. If you're planning to shoot only in bright daylight, you'll be fine. If you want consistent results in dusk or indoor environments, you may need to add a little extra lighting or accept a bit of grain. Stabilization is where DJI really leans on its legacy. The 3-axis gimbal on the Mini 4 Pro does a solid job keeping the horizon level even when you're battling a gusty afternoon. I flew a series of tracking shots while walking through a narrow alley, and the footage stayed buttery smooth. No jitter visible when I later reviewed it on my laptop. That means you can get cinematic moves without a separate gimbal rig, which is a big win for creators who want to stay light on their feet. One of the hidden strengths of this drone is the lens ecosystem. While you can't swap lenses on a Mini, DJI software gives you a suite of digital filters that emulate different looks, like a subtle teal-orange grade or a flat profile that's ready for color grading in post. The built-in D-Log mode produces a flat image curve that preserves highlights, which is useful if you're a hobbyist who wants to experiment with LUTs later. The downside is that you're stuck with the single fixed focal length, so you can't zoom optically. If you need true optical zoom for distant subjects, you'll have to look at a larger model. Menu navigation is another area where the Mini 4 Pro feels polished. The on-screen HUD is clean, and the main menus are reachable in under 5 taps. However, there is a slight learning curve when you dive into the more advanced flight modes like Active Track or Point of Interest. The options are there, but they're tucked under submenus, and you have to read a quick pop-up tutorial the first time you enable them. For a total beginner, it might be a little overwhelming at first, but once you get past the initial onboarding, the workflow becomes second nature. Battery confidence is a frequent pain point for drone owners, and the 3-battery Fly More package does a good job of mitigating it. Each cell gives about 34 minutes of